to Frankly Speaking Sports. We are honored and thrilled to have with us tonight a former Major League center fielder, first baseman who played from 1963 to 1974, played for the Boston Red Sox, played for the KC and Oakland Athletics, played for the Seattle Pilots, New York Mets, and Montreal Expos. Let's welcome in Jim Gosger. Jim, how you doing, buddy?
Well, I'm trying to stay warm, Larry. It's been a bit cold here. We've had a little bit of snow here in Michigan, but overall, it's been decent winter. We haven't had an abundance of snow. We've got our 25 or 30 inches, so we've been very fortunate. A lot of the big storms have either went north or south of us, so I feel very lucky that we missed a lot of that and just waiting for the warm weather.
Well, Jim, let me ask you this. You started your baseball career, at least at the Major League level, in 1963. Now, I know there's a bunch of things that are different in today's world versus 1963, but what were some of the major differences with the game of baseball from the time you started till today?
The strike zone is different, for one thing. The dress code is different, for another thing. If you talk to any of the players that played back when I did, there was a dress code on the field. And you watch the games now, and, when I played on the teams that I played with, they were very strict on dress code on the field. And you had to look like a professional. And I'm not knocking these kids nowadays. I think things have changed, times have changed. But the time when we played, you just had to dress a certain way, and this is the way the organization wanted to do it. And nowadays, I guess it's freestyle the way you want to dress and the way you want to look. We couldn't have long hair. If you had long hair, the manager would grab you and say, "Go get a haircut." At least look the part. And like I said, times have changed. It's been a little more lenient. I can remember when I was playing, when you were on the field, you couldn't talk and converse with your players you were playing against. They were the opposite from what we were, and we just couldn't, we couldn't converse with them. Nowadays, these kids can talk with each other and have a lot of fun on the field, which is probably nice. But back then, it was a little more strict than it is now.
Now, let me ask you this. One of the things in the news lately, and we heard about this possibly actually up in the Seattle area with the Mariners, they were talking about, salary manipulation and, all this stuff about sending players down to manipulate service time, this and that. But, you had an incident way back that people don't remember, and it's been going on in baseball forever. I guess now they've just been enlightened to it. But in 1963, you got to play on the Red Sox team. You had gotten a signing bonus, and you had to basically sit there on the bench instead of being in the minor leagues the entire 1963 season. How disturbing was that for you? And how much, now that you look back on that, do you wish they would have just sent you back to the minor leagues so that you could get your playing time?
When I first signed with the Red Sox, I'd had a good year my first year. I played in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, which was a Class D league. I was supposed to start in Class B ball, but because I had a good spring and Ted Williams put in a good word for me, he was our hitting instructor, which we couldn't have had anybody any better, And he talked to the manager, Eddie Popowski, and they took 5 rookies to Winston-Salem. And myself, Rico Petrocelli, Gabe Naldane, Jim Russell, and Billy Molina. The 5 of us, they took And I had a pretty good year. I hit 285, I think, at Winston-Salem. And the next year, with the new rules that they had then, if you were, you had to be protected or you could be picked up by somebody else. So I was lucky enough, I guess in one respect, to be on the Major League roster. They put me on the Major League roster. So I had a chance to sit there for a year, but I learned a lot. I learned a lot how to play the game. I learned how to dress and travel, and it was a great experience. I got my first Major League hit in Detroit, which was 50 miles from where I lived. All my family and friends were there. I got it off of one of the best pitchers that ever pitched in the game, I thought, was Frank Larry. And the thing that was so exciting about it was that Johnny Pesky said, go ahead on the hit, because he knew we were playing in my hometown or close to my hometown. And I got up there and I hit a line drive to center field, and Billy Bruton was standing out there, and to this day I think he let it drop in front of him. But the thing that stood out most was when I'm standing on first base, I look out at Frank Larry and he looks at me and tips his hat to me. And to me, that was nothing but class. I mean, I was a young kid, 19, 20 years old. I was so darn excited standing on first base. But to see that man who's been such a great pitcher with the Detroit Tigers to tip his hat to me, that kind of really made my year more than anything else.
Oh, I could imagine. And then you play in, 64, you go back to the minors, and then you come back in 65. That year back in the minors, did it help from the things you learned sitting on the bench in 63? Did it help you do things in the minors that next year to get you ready for 1965?
Yeah, the good thing about that was, Larry, was the fact that when I went back, I went to Reading, Pennsylvania, which was AA at the time, and I played again for Eddie Popowski. He was more like a father to me. He told me when I was in Winston-Salem, he called me aside and says, you can make the big leagues. He says, what I want you to do is hustle. I said, what are you talking about, Pop? He says, I want you to run on and off the field all the time. That's going to be your trademark. And from then on, that's the way I played the game. And the second year or the year after in 64, I was in Reading, Pennsylvania. I had a good year. I was promoted to AAA ball, which was Toronto, which is only 100 miles from where I live here. And I had as a teammate in 63, I had Dick Williams. In 65, he's my manager in AAA ball in Toronto. And I remember we were playing in Buffalo, and Harry Wendelstadt was in the minor leagues at that time. He was umpiring second base. Well, I was having a pretty good year. It was just before All-Star break. I think I was at 295. And I said, and Dick Williams said, he come up to me and he said, you're not gonna play today. I said, yeah. I said, I'm only a couple of hits away from 300. Can I play just the one game? And he said, okay. So I got up to bat. I get a double. I get down to second base, and Harry Wendelstadt was standing there. He says, congratulations, Jim. I said, Harry, what are you talking about? He says, you're going to be promoted to the big leagues tomorrow. I said, how do you know that? He says, I got the in. I know. Well, the thing about it was, Dick tells me after the game, he said, they've had injuries in Boston. He said, Geiger broke his ankle, and Lenny Green broke his wrist. He said, you're going to be the center fielder. And I was ecstatic. I come all the way, I run up to New York, or up to Boston. I played 81 games. I let off for them. I had a good year. I hit 265, I think, drove in about 50 or 60 runs. Well, at the end of the year, they had this big doings up in Boston, and I got the Harry Aganis Award for being a young player coming up. And I remember the owner comes up to me, nice man. He says, well, you're going to be protected next year. Well, that's kind of knife in the back, so to speak. When somebody says that to you, you kind of sit back and say, yeah, maybe not. But the following year at All-Star break or in June, I was traded to Kansas City, which was okay, I guess. I said they got some good players for us. They got Tardebol, they got John Wyatt, and somebody else for two of us. And I joined Kansas City. So, I mean, it was good and it was bad, but I got a chance to play. That was a good thing.
Jim, when you look back, I think it was, and don't quote me on it, 1960, I think, was the last year of the Negroes Leagues. And obviously one of the best pitchers ever to pitch, Satchel Paige. And I think if I remember correctly, you might have been the last guy to ever face Satchel Paige. What was it like to face Satchel Paige? And is it true, were you the last hitter to ever face him?
Larry, it was funny. We went into Kansas City. I was with Boston. I was in 65. And we go into Kansas City, and we didn't know what Finley had in mind. But when we come out to the field, somebody had said, Satchel Paige is going to pitch 3 innings. And I said, wow. And I looked down the bullpen, and there's a man sitting in a rocking chair with a nurse, and he's all covered up. He looks like Whisper's mother. And he's rocking there before the game started. Well, come to find out, it was Satchel Paige. So we start the game. I let off. He pitched 3 innings. We got 1 hit. Carl Yastrzemski was the only man that got a base hit off him. I had grounded out twice. But the ironic thing was, at the end of that 3rd inning, when I made the last out, I come running off the field, and he's walking off the field, Satchel Paige, and he says, young man, good luck to you. And boy, something like that, when something like that thing has said something to you, it really sticks with you. And it made my heart melt. I said, here's the man who's 58 years old. He threw the ball fairly well. But the thing that was so good was the fact that he never threw above the knees. Everything was knee-high or below. And at 58 miles an hour, or 60 miles an hour, he's still throwing pretty good for that age. And it was just, it was a thrill. And I never knew, or I never found out that I was the last hitter to face him until I read it in a little book that they had put out about Satchel Paige. And that was one of my big thrills playing ball. I've had some great moments. I've had bad moments, but I've had some great moments. And those things like this really stick out in your mind. And they're great to reminisce on. And I just enjoy going back and thinking about all the stuff that happened in the 13 years that I played. And I don't feel bad about anything. I was very lucky. I was at the right places at the right times. Being with the Mets when they won the World Series, that was a big thrill. I think back to all the times and Gil Hodges that was there. What a great manager he was. And I've had some good managers. I've had some bad managers, but nobody really stood out to be, anything bad. We had some funny stuff going on when we were in Seattle. That was probably the funniest club I was ever on. But I was only there for a period of 2 months. But the first 2 months were different.
Well, Jim, talk about that before. We'll get into the Mets in a couple minutes. But you just talked about Seattle and you brought it up. If I remember correctly, when you started with them, they were an expansion team. How was it playing for a team that's never played before, a brand new team? And, because obviously everybody was in the same boat. They were new to that team. So how was that experience?
Well, the thing that stood out there is when we first got to the ballpark, I walk out on the field and you look and there's a big crane still putting stands in the old ballpark. There was 6 stadium. And, It was an open air park. It was like Montreal, but Montreal was a lot nicer than Six Stadium was. But they were there for that 1 year. He had a great bunch of guys, but when you put 25 guys together that have never played together before, a lot of us were older, not young guys, and to try and win games, and we had a manager, Joe Schultz, but for some reason he just didn't care. He didn't care if you win or lost, as long as it was Budweiser in the end of the game.
Jim, you talked about some big moments, and it's really ironic because everybody talks about, when they talk about Jim Gosger, they talk about he was a hustler, everything. He would dive, run, do whatever it takes to win type ball player. Unbelievable defensively. But when you look at some of your brighter moments, you mentioned Satchel Paige, his last, you were the last one to face him. But when you did make the most of your hits, it seemed like it came versus some of the best pitchers to ever pitch. I mean, look at just three guys off the top of my head that you homered versus: Whitey Ford, Denny McClain, and Phil Niekro. And I want to say all three of them are in the Hall of Fame. So, I mean, that has to say something for your offensive production.
Let me tell you a story about Whitey Page. Well, first of all, Denny McClain and I are on Facebook together, and every time we talk, he always says, "I could never get you out." I said, "Well, you keep throwing the damn fastball." I was a dead fastball hitter. But the thing about with Whitey Ford, when we were playing in Boston, and I asked Eddie Pursue, I said, "Eddie, what do I look for?" He said, "Just look for the ball." I said, "Well," he said, "just look for the ball." He said, "He's got a strange motion," but he said, "just look for the ball." And I said, "Okay." Well, I go up there and I get him, 2-2, and he turned me a high slider, and I hit it into the net in left field. And that's a big thrill. I'm coming around third base, and I said, "My God, I hit a home run off Whitey Ford." Stuff like that. I think back and I can remember, to the day and to the pitch that I got. And McClain, he just kept throwing fastballs, and I said, "I'll wear you out if you keep throwing the fastball." I said, "You throw a lot of speed pitch, I might have a problem." But I was a dead fastball hitter, and I look back on it, and Denny and I talk about all the time. That I just could never get you out.
Yeah, now talk about 1969. I know you're playing with Tidewater. They win the International League Championship. Then you get called up, and you're able to be part. You're playing for the New York Mets now in the unbelievable city of New York. And not only were you able to be a part of the 1969 World Series for the Mets, you also got to be part of the 1973 team as well. Talk about, the team success anyway, how it felt to be able to be in one of the best cities of all time and to be on center stage and, be part of those teams.
Well, in '69, when I come up with the Mets, I come up just about the first. I think it was the last week in August, or right around the first week of September. They called me up, and Joe Hodges called me aside. What a great man he was. The man should be in the Hall of Fame. He really should. He was that well respected by his ball players. And the thing about Joe, he was very quiet, but when he spoke, everybody was all ears. And that was a tribute to him, And he told me when I joined the club, he said, "Jimmy, I'm going to use you strictly as defense." He says, "I'll get you in the game a couple times and get some at bats, strictly defense." I said, "Skip, whatever's best for the team, I'm all for it." And that's the way he was. And he would put me in the seventh inning in center field. And I could still remember that I went to we had a reunion about 3 or 4 years ago up in New York, and Cleon Jones come up to me and he says, "Hey, Goose, can you still run?" I said, "No." He says, "I used to love it because I knew in the 7th inning you were going to play the outfield." And he says, "We knew we had the best out there." And that kind of made me feel good. But when I went up in 73, I was up there for like 5 months. I got called up early, and I got a chance to play quite a bit. I got my ring in 73. The only thing I'm disappointed about was, Larry, that I didn't get one in 69.
And why is that, Jim?
Well, then they had that tribute, a couple years ago up there. They had all the players back up there. And a friend of mine on Facebook, young kid from New York, he gets a hold of me and he said, "Jim, are you coming up to the reunion?" I said, "No, I never got an invitation." And I come to find out the day that they had the big deal on the ball field, they put up on the scoreboard that I was dead. They had a tribute to some of the players that had passed on. A couple people on the Facebook. On my Facebook, went down on the field, told the guy, he says, "The guy's still alive, for God's sake, he's on my Facebook." And that was kind of funny. But I got a lot of publicity out of it. I had the TV station from Detroit come here and ask me about all that stuff. And I just felt disappointed that I didn't get the ring. I got the ring in 73, and it's never come off my finger. But I never did get the one in 69. But these people, these friends of mine in New York, they had that day after that, they were giving away rings that were a duplicate of what the major league ring was. It was a beautiful big ring with one big diamond in the middle. Well, I had come home from over at my sister's in Lansing, and my wife said, "You got a ring here, or you got a box here." And I opened it up and I started to cry because I thought it was a real thing, but it was a duplicate. But, stuff like that, the thing that just got to me was the fact that they give all their coaches, all their personnel in the front office, all got a ring, and myself and about 4 or 5 other players that were up there didn't get one. And that kind of just stuck in my craw, as far as that goes. But it's over and done with. I've had people come on my Facebook, so we're going to contact New York with this new organization and see if maybe we can get your ring. And I said, well, I kind of think it's a lost cause, but it's something that I always wanted. Because, it's so hard as a professional to win something like that, whether it be football, basketball, baseball. When you get something when you're done playing or after the year's over with, that you've accomplished something, that's a big thrill. And any athlete will tell you the same thing. To get a ring, to get something that you've worked so hard for, and that's a great feeling.
Yeah, now, Jim, did they ever call you and apologize?
Did they what, Bert?
Did they ever call you and apologize about the mistake of saying that you...
That was funny. But the same night after that had happened, after somebody went down and told them, this guy calls me, I don't know whether he was drunk or what, and he says, "Well, I want to apologize." I said, F you, and I hung up. I was that mad,
And you had a right to be.
I still feel pretty good. I don't think I'm dead yet, but at that time, it just really stuck me pretty good. And I said, from then on, I used to follow the Mets. I had some great teammates. Tom Seaver was the best pitcher I ever played with. And I like the guys. I love the guys. I love the manager. But the organization, it kind of went to pot. I hope this new guy that has it now really does well. I'm glad to see they made some changes. They picked up some pretty good ball players this year, and I hope they do well. But I always had that bad craw in my mouth, about bad taste in my mouth with what they did to myself and about 5 other ball players that were up there and contributed. And you know, I mean, why give everybody in the organization one when they're do nothing but work in the front office, and then you know they don't take care of the players. So you know, but it's over the dam. I got over it. You know, like I say, it's something that it's a great thrill to be part of that. I mean, it was just ecstatic the day that we clinched, and you see all the people that on the field, and the players and everybody. I mean, that's a thrill.
How crazy did the city get? How crazy was New York City after that?
Oh my gosh. Well, I mean, unbelievable. I mean, people coming up to you that you don't even know. I lived in a hotel right across from the airport, LaGuardia. And that place was packed that night. People coming up, patting you on the back and everything. Hey, I didn't do nothing. I was just here. But the people were so ecstatic about winning. You know, they've never won anything there with the Mets before, and you know, they start from scratch and they come out and put together a team like that. I mean, the pitching was unbelievable. We had mediocre hitting, but I'll tell you what, we had pitching. I mean, we had 3 or 4 big names that really carried us. And when we're in a tough spot, give the ball to Seaver. You know, he's going to do it. And I mean, he's one of the best competitors I've ever seen. And I mean, it was a thrill being his teammate. I hate to see him pass away. I mean, it hurt me because we were such good friends. And I just, you know, I think back of the good times with him. I had seen him about 15 years later. He was at a show down here near Detroit. And we had stopped in. I'd come back when my grandson had been baptized. And I come back through there and I said to my wife, let's stop into this place. I just want to see what's going on. And I didn't know he was there. And he's up on the stage. And I asked the girl, I said, can I talk to Tom for a minute? She said, well, he's pretty busy. I said, well, just tell him I'd like to talk to him. Well, he looked at me and he kept looking. After we were done, I come up to him. I said, Tom, you remember me? He said, Jimmy? I said, yeah, Tom. I said, how are you? He said, just great. And we talked for half an hour. I mean, that's a big thrill for me, you know.
Right.
We hadn't seen each other for years. And then just not 2 weeks ago, a friend of mine that I played with Seattle, Gary Bell. I haven't seen him or talked to him in 52 years. He calls me up on a Facebook, and we talk on Facebook. We had face talk on there, and I said, oh my God, Gary, how long? It's been 52 years. And we reminisced, you know, with baseball and the players that we played with, and the good times we had up in Seattle. And, you know, stuff like that really makes you feel good in this tough time that we're going through now.
Jim, before I let you run, if you had, and I know it's tough, you played 10 years, I mean, but if one memory sticks out more than any other memory in your career, what would that be?
Probably my first major league hit, Larry. You know, I mean, I've had some good times, and just to get that hit in Detroit, my dad was in tears. My dad was in tears when I signed the contract. He always wanted me to play professional baseball. Hell, since I was in Little League. You know, he said he took me down to a Tiger game, and we're watching Boston play again, and he loved Boston. Playing Boston against Detroit. Ted Williams was left field, and I'm 8 years old. He looked at me and he said, someday you're going to be out there. I said, Dad, only 8 years old. He said, you're going to make it. You know, and when I signed that contract, my dad was ecstatic. I mean, I actually only saw him in tears twice. Once when I signed, and once when his brother died. The only times I ever saw my dad in tears. But that was a big thrill for him to know that his son, his only son, had a chance to and did play in the big leagues.
Now, if I'm correct, you played at Fenway, correct?
Yes.
And how surprising to see that stadium still exists.
Well, you know, I mean, like I say, I had a great career. I had a lot of fun. you know, I got some great memories, some great stories, and some guy had contacted me and said, would you like to write a book? I said, yeah, I'd love to if I could find an author. I said, I'd love to write a book. I said, because I got some great stories. And you know, from going from playing high school ball here in a small town and getting picked to play and getting a chance to play in the big leagues, you know, I would never trade that for the world. I mean, I had the 13 greatest years of my life. I had good experiences. I had good people. I'm just, you know, it's a life that, you know, if anybody can work for 13 years and enjoy what they're doing and getting paid for, there's nothing better.
Well, listen, Jim, I want to thank you so very, very much for taking time out of your schedule to join us on Frankly Speaking Sports tonight.
Larry, thank you very much. And one person I wanted to say, she wanted me to say hi to her. It was Virgil Trucks, who used to pitch with Detroit. It was his daughter, Wendy Trucks. So the Wendy Trucks, I love you, dear.
All right.
She's a great young lady, and she's on my Facebook, and she just loves sports, and she's into it, and she talks about her dad all the time, and he was a great one when he was with Detroit.
Well, listen, if you know, like I said, you're always welcomed. Whenever you'd like to talk, you just let me know. You're always welcome back on the show, my friend. Be safe, okay?
Thank you very much, Larry. Hey, if you get a chance, would you put that on my timeline?
I'll take care of it. Yep.
I'd appreciate it very much. That's a good memory for me.
You got it. I'll take care of it right after the show.
All right, my friend. Thank you so much, and call anytime.
All right. Thank you. Be safe.
All right, my friend. Thank you.
You're welcome. That was Jim Gosger. What a great stories. You know, this is a guy that's played with Denny McLain. You know, was coached by Ted Williams. With Negro he played with the great Tom Seaver, Carl Yastrzemski. I mean, Boston fans, this guy was in Fenway Park there in the early years, and then in Shea Stadium in New York, and then of course, let's not forget, he played in Seattle for the Pilots and KC, that old ball field back there. Just incredible stories from Jim Gosger. And we want to thank him.